Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another exciting episode of Caught on the Mic. I don't know if your summer has been like my summer has. Back in April, I made a promise to myself, more music, more episodes about music. I even made it a personal goal to get my ass out of the house to go start seeing live shows again. It's been a long time. Sometimes if the choice is to listen to something on streaming or on vinyl or get my ass out of the house, sometimes I choose to sit around the house, even in my own fault. But it has been a fantastic summer so far, a summer filled full of music, and I am super excited to introduce my next guest, Alex Dugan. He is the lead singer of the band Culture Wars. How the heck are you?
I'm all right, just living life, trying to finish the album and getting ready for shows.
Yeah, so how's your summer been so far?
It's been cool. I just got back from Cardiff. I was seeing the first night of Oasis, so I mean, life could be worse.
Dude, you kill me. So Oasis, honestly, Oasis is part of the spark to fire that made me make this decision where I was just like, I cannot believe they're coming back. It's long overdue. And I'm a huge Oasis fan. What's your favorite Oasis song?
When we play live, we our intro like walk out of cigarettes and alcohol, so that's kind of stuck to me a lot. Slide Away, that kind of stuff. I mean, I like all the kind of punchers, but it was but no, it was good. It was very cool to see it in person. And I've only seen Noel in person, so it was good to see the real thing.
Yeah, how do you feel about Noel and Liam's solo stuff? I actually was a huge fan of Liam's more recent solo stuff, personally.
Yeah, I definitely. It's interesting because there's certain songs that Noel did on his own stuff where I went, "Ooh, that's that." I mean, he said this himself, but I was like, "That's an Oasis record." It's just,
Yeah,
this is where they are right now. They're not talking or whatever, but and Liam's stuff's been cool too, and obviously he's been able to step up and do Nebworth himself and kind of prove, I don't necessarily, it to me, that what I, especially from that documentary he just kind of pulled himself up by his bootstraps and figured out how to do it on his own. So I think regardless of like particular taste of one or the other or them both together, whatever, it's like, I think it's really like pretty rare for someone in his position to be like, no, I'm gonna swing this out until it works, kind of thing. And that's what he did. So
yeah, man, I'm glad to hear that somebody else made that documentary their pandemic watch, because it definitely was mine.
yeah, it was good. Yeah, it was very good. I love watching stuff like that. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So we're going to get in the weeds about Culture Wars here in just a moment, but talking a little bit about Oasis, who are some of your songwriting influences, and is Oasis one of them or one of many?
Yeah, I think Oasis for sure is one of them. I think, I mean, I grew up, and everybody's different in the band, but I grew up kind of listening to the Beatles a lot, obviously. So did they. I mean, that's hard to not. My dad only kind of allowed 2 CDs in the car when he drove me to school every day, and it was the Beatles' #1 hits and Jimi Hendrix Are You Experienced. So that's all I listened to for like the majority of my life. I remember having some Nirvana stuff around when I was a kid. I think my mom bought that of all things, but really it was always like Beatles. And then when I got into like high school, it became more Stones, and then it's kind of done this as a, kind of mixed in as a kid. But I think like now, as a grown up, as a kid, I think now, like on this record, at least, just stylistically, I think obviously Oasis is something we look to. I think that U2's All That You Can't Leave Behind, I think, is a very specific record that I at least reference when we're working on it. I mean, again, with the band, everybody has a different thing, and Dave or Dylan's reference may be different from mine. I think one that we would all kind of say like, all right, yeah, 2 would be like Third Eye Blind's debut record.
Right.
But there's a lot of in between. There's a lot of, I mean, we're all from Texas. I grew up listening to a lot of country as well. And, so there's a lot of that kind of just creeps in there on accident,
Yeah.
You know, I'm from Houston, so we go to the rodeo every year and stuff like that. So that'll kind of creep in. Um, but yeah, I mean, other songwriters, I'm sure there's a lot of things like, I mean, I listen, well, all of us, we listen to all sorts of different stuff. So, I mean, it could
I
creep
think
in. But yeah, we're also not shy to like the kind of pop stuff, and it's a craft. So yeah.
I think that's a commonality with musicians, and it's funny because this has come up in several episodes recently. You know, I no longer play anymore myself, but I was in the business for 15 years. And, you know, in the age and era of streaming, genre matters less as much as mood does. Like people want to feel a certain way to where they don't care about genre lines, where 10, 15 years ago industry reps would have said, okay, pick a lane, stay in that lane, don't blur those lanes at all. Where now it's like musicians can be who they truly are, influenced from by everything from like jazz to pop music to, you know, singer-songwriter stuff, and the Brit pop stuff that's so fantastic. But my childhood is very similar to yours. I remember growing up, my dad would sit on the floor of his bedroom with an acoustic guitar and play Here, There, and Everywhere by the Beatles almost endlessly. So that got ingrained into my head, and I had to have a deep love of the Beatles because of such. So let's talk a little bit about Culture Wars and the origin story. How did the project come together, and how long have you guys been a band?
Well, I can only say it, I guess, from my perspective, because everyone kind of found it in different ways. I always wanted to have a band and find guys to be in a band with. It was something I, spent a long time trying to figure out, and it's a lot like dating. You
Right.
go, you have a couple one night stands, you go through a couple girlfriends, you get cheated on. It all plays out. But yeah, I mean, I think the first step to that being real was just meeting David, and him and I have been in different bands with each other. I think we've known each other for like 11 years, and we've played together in different bands for that long, and we're kind of like the old married couple of the band.
Right.
I'm admittedly the mother, he's the father, but so I mean that him and I have been, farting around trying to do that, and then eventually we kind of in a previous band, or no, it wasn't in a previous band. It was in this band. I mean, we kind of met Dylan, and he fit in like a glove, and that kind of became it. But it was really before we had put any music out or anything. We were just trying to find other people. And Caleb was, when we were doing the first EP, Caleb was an intern at the studio where we were making demos.
Oh, wow.
And then he became like our producer / songwriting partner / guitar player through that. And then when we were actually recording tech, Josh was also an intern at a different studio at Sonic Ranch in El Paso. And when it came time to like needing another guitar player, we were like, well, we all like Josh, and he's moving to Austin, so why don't we just ask him? And we know we like him, especially when you're on the road with people. You don't like him, it's not gonna last very long,
Right.
So it's just very like kind of fall in your lap kind of stuff. But yeah.
So the name Culture Wars, it's pretty evocative. Is there a deeper meaning behind the band name, and how does it shape your lyrical and sonic direction?
When we first came up with it, it wasn't like some, prophetic kind of whatever. It was just kind of, that sounds cool. And then I Googled it, and I was
Right.
like, oh, that was like a book in the 80s about Reagan. I'm like, all right, whatever. It's not, as long as there's not another band, it's fine. And then later we kind of, thought about it, I guess, because obviously people ask the question because it's a real name, you know what I mean? And, I think we're just all from very different like walks of life and stuff. And we're from different upbringings, we're into different music and stuff like that. And we certainly don't agree on everything, but like we do agree on the music and what we're doing.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of our way of like bridging different cultures and coming together. And so it kind of, the band itself is kind of the the culture war, or how we would like the actual culture war to go, where everyone just kind of brings their ideas together and comes to a common goal instead of
Yes.
this, incessant just kind of horse shitting around. But sorry, I don't know if I can curse on here or
Oh,
not.
no,
But,
please. I use curse words as punctuation marks, so go
okay,
ahead.
I was just making sure because with radio, I go, whoops, I'll get a jab if we're doing a radio thing. But yeah, so yeah, that's kind of where we're at in terms of like it affecting the music. I just don't think about it when it comes to the music.
Right.
I I think it just kind of happens naturally on its own in certain songs, but it's certainly not a like we're called culture wars, so we should say something. It's like I don't give a shit. It's I get that too. They're like, oh, like you guys should have, everyone wants you to be everyone wants you to speak to them, and that's great. But when everyone wants you to like speak to their political views and you have to agree with them or forget it,
Yeah.
like look, I'm not I'm not like I'm not heavy one way or the other, to be completely honest.
I'm the same way.
I'd be, if you had to put it, it'd probably be more like a libertarian thing or something. Not that I like go that way or whatever, but I'm very like moderate in a lot of ways. But I also realize to be in the middle, you have to kind of listen to people say things, even if you heavily disagree with them. And look, I've got a temper myself. I have a hard time listening to people say things. I'm just like, oh my God, like why, but that's how you reach people. That's how you like connect. And so, you know, sometimes I always say, just let them get it out of their system. Just let them say it. And then you go,
Right.
okay, what if we did this? Let them think it's their idea. Who cares? It's all, everyone wins together. It's that, it's when everyone gets into this ego, I have to be right thing, you're screwed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I was going to ask you that specifically, if there's ever been anything where people have challenged you on the name, and you kind of answered that. Usually I have a very strict, I don't talk politics, I don't talk religion on my show, for very similar reasons to yourself. As a matter of fact, while I was listening to you, I pulled up a note that I saved on my phone, and it's this thing that I read to myself, and it says, if you're intelligent enough to steer clear of far right or far left political tribalism, it's not because you're weak, indecisive, or lukewarm. It's because you understand nuance. You're likely well read enough to understand subtext and recognize that blindly worshiping politics or politicians and making them your entire identity is no different than joining a cult.
Well, it's certainly a lot easier to get done what you need to get done when everyone's so pissed off at each other that they're not looking at you. So,
Right.
I think that's kind of unfortunately the tailspin we're in, but maybe not. We'll see. But I have great hopes for the human race. Or
Oh
sitting
my
around
gosh.
listening to Peter Thiel talk about transhumanism. Whatever. The guy invented a taxi app. Like, get off your high horse. Like, this is just, we're in an alternate universe where people just, listen to people carry on. Like now, they're listening to me carry on. So here we go.
Right.
As long as I
Right.
keep talking. No, I'm kidding.
So Typical Ways is currently sitting at 5 million streams, and It Hurts cracked the top 20 on alt radio. Did you anticipate that wave of momentum when you started the band, and hasn't it all felt surreal?
Yeah, look, we always, I, this is my new theory on it, and not theory, just kind of my new feeling on it. I always I've always wanted there to be some moment where you get the phone call and it's like, guys, they said yes, and you're like, and you freeze frame and the whole thing's over. It just never happens. It never fucking
Right.
happens, and it's not how it is. I always, whenever we get like something, it's always a yeah, but right, like you're gonna get the tour, but this and this, or you're gonna get the tour, but the promoter in this country is blocking you, so you have a week off in the middle. Yeah, that happened. But
Oh shit.
it's like, yeah, you're gonna get it, but you're this, or like, so by the time we get to these things, you've gone through so many, like death by a thousand cuts or whatever. You've gone through so many things that you're like, well, yeah, that happened because like with radio, like we got 20, like that's awesome. And I love and appreciate all the support. We've been trying to get on the radio for like 6 years, so, and
Right.
we've been working it. I've been going to all those events and, they have like like the radio programmer events where you can kind of like perform and what all that kind of stuff and showcase and things. And even when we weren't showcasing, I just go to hang out and just like get to know everybody. Even when they wouldn't play us, I would just show up and just have drinks with people and not ask for anything because that never goes anywhere. I'm just trying to get to know people, and then eventually maybe something will come up and maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. It's fine. But with Ray, I've been working that for a long time, and I appreciate all the support. But it's at the same time, it's like, man, I've been pounding that pavement for for like 5-6 years.
Right. Do you feel that the momentum for where the industry has moved has changed in such a way that's made it harder or made it easier as streaming has evolved and social media has evolved?
The lifespan of like a platform, right? Like a CD or a tape or streaming or whatever, usually is around a decade. And we're at the end point of what would be considered to be Spotify, but really streaming's
Right.
thing. I think push has come to shove and there has to be an answer. And these labels are shedding staff and shedding people and shedding expenses. But I would think that they're shaping up for whatever's next. I don't know that there's an answer yet, but in the end of the day, Spotify has become kind of a loss leader in a way. It's kind of a promotion.
Right.
Do I think that there's a way that, the platform could be used better to convert? Like, for example, when we put a show on sale, like how well are they really alerting these people? And especially now with the advent of like, and I'm just being honest, like with the advent of like Marquee and like Spotify Marquee, like, without paying them to give your music to your own followers, if I didn't do anything, maybe 5, maybe 9% on a good day of our active audience would actually get served our new song. That's a problem.
Right.
So you're really on your own to develop your own Instagram, your own TikTok has a similar problem, but your own mailing list. That's still the driver, for everything. I call it hand-to-hand combat, going to
Right.
shows, meeting people. Like when we do opening gigs, we are very particular about getting access to have like our QR code on the screen before and after we go on, so that if people actually like us, we can capture that and they can, pick up on us. Cause otherwise, you can't just have some big banner anymore, it's helpful, but it's, when you're a band like us touring around with a 20-foot banner or whatever, it's not really feasible.
Right. Right.
But you just have to keep pivot, you just have to keep punching and moving. But no one's getting rid of their email address anytime soon. They may decide they don't like Instagram. They may decide they don't like TikTok. They may start listening on the new platform that's not Spotify, but they ain't changing their email address usually, to a point. So that can kind of be your foolproof, but unless everyone decides they don't like Gmail anymore, but we'll find out.
Well, there's been kind of a resurgence in physical media with younger generations getting into collecting both vinyl, and even CDs are starting to slowly come back, which is perplexing to me. I know a few record store owners myself that said that kids are starting to come in and buy CDs again. Are you seeing a resurgence in people expressing interest in having physical media from your band?
Um, you get the vinyl question every once in a while, but it's usually the super fans, and I think when we come
Right.
with when we come with the album, you can do all sorts of vinyls or box sets or whatever for the people who are really, heavily invested, which we do have more than usual chunk of, as Spotify would call it, super fans, as well as just people that engage with us on a daily basis. But But yeah, I mean, I think vinyl. I've not had anyone ask me for a CD. I'd probably ask them if they even had a CD player. But yeah, but even with vinyl, they just want something big that they can put like on their dresser. I don't know that half these people are even playing it off of vinyl. But
Right.
whatever.
That's a very good point. That's a very good point. I know for me, physical media used to be kind of a ritualistic exercise. It's taking the shrink wrap off, opening it up, looking at the cover, the liner notes, and all of that. So I've got kids and I haven't really tried to correlate with them what their experience is. But I know when my daughter sits in her room and she's listening to The Cure, on vinyl, I feel fucking great about it.
Yeah, you probably did something right there. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the new single. Let's talk about Lies. In a time where rock music leans synthetic or ironic, you're leaning into sincerity and actual instrumentation. Was that a conscious choice?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's a conscious decision that Caleb and I talked about, God, 3 years ago or something. And in the process of that happening, you kind of have seen it start to lift its hand like in pop music and other things, which is great because it paves the way, like Olivia Rodrigo, for example, right? Like she essentially made like a pop rock record or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So we've seen that people want to, I think as we're moving forward, people are, when AI can do whatever it's going to do, not well, but that's fine. I'm sure it's copying my voice now and getting ready to impersonate me at some point. But, um, I think when anyone can do it and when it's all readily available, where you back into is, like you said, like authentic expressions from people telling real stories. And there's always going to be, things in between left, right, and center, but that seems to be where things are starting to move. And, hopefully, we can be a part of that train. We'll just have to see as we continue to grow. You know?
Yeah. So Lies started off as a synth driven track and then evolved into a full band anthem. How did the transition in production reflect your personal or emotional growth, especially with the lyric content?
Yeah, we just the way we made the record essentially was like we do a vocal and a guitar, or a vocal and a piano, like two elements. And if it's not good like that, we don't move forward. And that's how we did the majority of the album, with Miley being like the exception to that. That just was kind of random. Uh, but yeah, with that being said, we were doing the album. We kind of that allowed us to then, like, all right, we know we have a good song on its own. So now we can just record drums, bass, guitar. It doesn't have to do all these bells and whistles. It could just be a band. And that's what enabled us to do the organic shtick, lack of a better phrase. But um, with Lies, in that same thought, I kind of brought up like, you know, the song itself on its own is great. If we did it the way we're doing everything else, I'm sure it would be just as good. And eventually everyone kind of agreed, and we just, the song was already there. We just re-demoed it and re-recorded it and put it together, and that was it. So um it went from like, maybe that song fades away to, oh, now this is like the next like lead single, because now we've put it in this new realm. And the song changed. uh the underlying chords of the song changed. We like dropped, we changed it around. We kind of made it work for like what the album sounds like. I changed some lyrics in the song simply because the guys were like, "We like your lyrics. That line needs to change." I went, "Okay." I was like, "Are you sure?" And they're like, Yeah, that's always bothered us." So I went, "Okay, great." So I changed it. Um, and it worked, and it's I'm sure I'm sure everyone would agree it's better now. But yeah, I mean, that was really the transition. But I think it was just a testament to us like finding our own sound and then being able to like apply it to something.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Do you view whenever you finish a song or prep a song for release? I know it's kind of cheesy to imply that there's this notion of this is going to be the one, this is going to be the one. But do you ever kind of take a step back and think of a song in the sense of this could be a major inflection point for the band once this is dropped and shared with the public?
I have was it Delusions of Grandeur or whatever, or Illusions of Grandeur, whichever one it is that plays into it that I don't know which one it is, but yeah, I always, Dave's always like, we'll see, and I'm always like, this is gonna be great, so I can't really speak. I think the one thing that we knew, at least with Typical Ways, for the most part Lies as well, but Typical Ways more so because we just weren't expecting it. That's a song that almost didn't make the album altogether. We almost didn't release it at all. And then, our managers would just not fucking shut up about it. And I was like, guys, you're making me hate this more every time you bring it up. And we finally just agreed to play it live, and then it went over well. And we were playing with banners, which is like, alternative, but like on pop leaning, and that's weird. And then we went, well, it'll probably do well in front of the Cult fans because we did some big Canada with them. And that was less surprising because it's the Cult, but it went over well there too. But like more so than everything else, we're like, okay, but maybe that's just the Cult. And then we did LANY, which is very pop and not necessarily live. Live, it's not as pop as it sounds on the record. It's actually, I live, it's even better to me. But anyway, that's just a thing for them. But we did with LANY where the music is very pop and we're in Asia, and it was like Singapore Indoor Stadium, and just everyone went nuts. And I was like, that's bizarre. Okay. And then we did it every single night, and it was like a big, so it was just one of those things where like the crowd informed you, hey, this is working. And we went, okay, well, I guess we're releasing this now. But then you're like, well, I hope the recording, maybe it's just that the song is really loud and people like the energy of it, and the recording won't translate. But luckily, that it worked the same way. So that was a big inflection point, and we certainly weren't thinking about it. With Lies, I've always felt like that song just works. But this new version of it is obviously, I think, a lot better. And so hopefully, that thing did 4 million streams on its own, and it wasn't a very good version of it. So hopefully it does twice that, and we'll be made in the shade,
So as far as lyrical content goes, you wrote Lies during a different chapter of your life. How does it feel to perform a song that's so tied to heartbreak now that you're in a new chapter?
Yeah, less so any other song. That song specifically is very, very hard for me to remove myself from it, even when I do it now. It's just really hard to just like disassociate and not like feel something every time we do it, especially now. Right. There was like even like recently we did Mexico with Wallows, and those shows were great, but something kind of like re-triggered my thought about all of that, and doing that song and the reason I wrote it and all that kind of stuff. It just kind of there was just some stuff going on that kind of clicked it in, and I kind of just, again, emotionally just kind of like went full on it, and to the point where I got to Typical Ways, and I had maybe sang a little too hard on Lies previously, and my voice was not happy with me at the end of it. But I mean, not that anyone ever notices, but I was like, okay, maybe
But
don't.
we always do, man. A fellow singer here, we always know. We always know.
But especially a song like Typical Ways, that's so high up that you get a little bit of forgiveness. But yeah, it's just it's still kind of clicks for me, which is funny that it's stayed that way. But as long as it clicks for other people, it's it really isn't about me.
Sure. So considering this upcoming record, it's kind of been cited as a full circle moment. So in totality, once everything's released and it's all fully fleshed out, what can fans expect sonically and thematically? And what do you hope they take away from it?
we always say like organic, you know, it's like this is a band record of 5 guys who are friends with each other and happen to make this music and stuff. And I think, you know, we've spent a long time trying to figure out what we're doing, and then we've finally figured it out. So, you know, the theme of the record is just the band. That's it's the guys, you know. I've always been very strong, opinionated that this whole thing only works with the sum of the parts kind of deal. Whether I like it or not, depending on what my attitude is that day. You know, everybody's got their, you know, even when everybody's being a pain in the ass to me or whatever, you know, it's everyone has their own opinion, but it's really greater in the sum of its parts. So I think the record and the theme of it is the band, and it's you know, it's a real record of real people playing their instruments. I know that sounds bizarre, but it's what it is, you know.
Do you ever get that post-release fatigue? Like where you're just like, okay, this thing is finally out. I'm ready to move on. I'm ready to start ripping through some new material. Because I know that's common. Like a lot of times by the time the final album or final set of songs have released, you're already internally ready to move on to the next batch. Do you get that way?
Uh, kind of two different vibes of it. A, kind of no from like a promotional standpoint, because
Right.
my brain is like just, you know, just go all the time, like, you know, never give up. Like, is, you know, I love this job. I love what we do. I love the fact that we're in the position that we're in. We're very, very, very lucky, and we've caught some real breaks lately, that have been game changers. I mean, I don't know if we'd be out the other end maybe without them. I have no, who knows.
Right.
Um, in terms of like getting sick of the music or whatever, you know, look, I consider it a badge of honor to be sick of the music that we're doing, because
Yeah.
A, it means you're doing something right, but B, we rehearse so much that we don't feel that we're ready for a show until we hate the fucking song, pretty much.
Yeah.
So that's just how we are. We burn it into the ground. Like my true test of am I ready is, can I look at Instagram while I'm singing in rehearsal, completely zone out? I don't even know. I'm not even paying attention to any song. I have to like essentially wake up in order to realize where I am. And I can sing the whole set without even thinking about it, scrolling through Instagram, looking at random stuff. If I can do that, then I'm ready. Because when you get on
Yeah.
stage and you got all these people in front of you, you know, especially on these larger, like, you know, arena and stadium tours, you got all these people that want to wave and interact and like whatever. And if anything's going to throw you off, like you know, you have to just know exactly where you are at any given point. Cause you want to, like, you're there for them, you know, you want to interact with these people. You want to like engage. You want to be like, hey, what's up? Like I'm here in, you know, Manila for the first or second time in my life. Like, let's go kind of thing. You know, it's a celebration in a way, but you don't want to blow it in front of 55,000 people because you got too excited, you know?
Right.
So, you know, so yeah, we have to rehearse it to the point of being sick of it. That's fine.
Right. Absolutely. Man, I tell you what, all my years of playing in bands, it never failed that there would be a loud minority group of the band, like 2 or 3 guys that wanted to add new music to every single show. And you're like, dude, we got to play what the people know first until we start just salt and peppering in a bunch of new shit.
No
And
matter how good it is, 9 times
right.
out of 10, no one cares unless it's typical ways. No, okay. You know, then no one cares. But you know, like, you surprise yourself sometimes. But yeah, I mean, most of the time, if you're doing your own show, if you're opening for somebody, all of it's new and whatever. But
Absolutely.
you're also, and this is kind of not artsy to say, when you're opening for someone, you are an advertisement. And the guys disagree with me on this sometimes, but I'm always like, we are going out there and we are advertising our music. Someone hears a song that they like, and then they go home and they can't find it. Tough finding them later. Like
Right.
you want them to be like, I love that song, go save it and go listen to it 5 times. And then when you come back, they come back. Right. So, there's a balance to it, but you can always just slip in one or the other. I don't know.
What has been your most eye-opening or awe-struck, shocking moment that you've experienced during this journey with Culture Wars?
My favorite show is still opening for LANY at the Philippine Arena in Manila. That was just, we had been doing some big shows with them, like, Singapore Indoor Stadium, it's like 20,000 people, things like that. But this is 55,000 people, and it was sold out. They were all there way before we even went on, and we went on at 6:30. Those people it was absolutely filled to the brim, everybody, no one was waiting around at like 5:00 or something. And like walking in there, it was like walking into the Roman Coliseum. It's the largest indoor stadium. It's like there's a Guinness Book of World Record thing for it. Indoor stadium, right? And so, but it's 55,000 people, and it was just nuts. And kudos to LANY for cultivating that, because they have built something very specific over there that, I mean, only major acts are able to replicate. Like the only other people that are playing that Philippine Arena are like Bruno Mars and Dua Lipa or whatever. I mean, we went
Right.
and did Maroon 5 in Manila, and Maroon 5 is a massive band, but they're playing the 20,000 seat arena. For whatever reason, they have built just this amazing thing in the Philippines, and they love them. So this crowd was just like ready for it, as if it felt like it was our show to a point. That's how like ready for it they were.
Awesome.
And it was just nuts. And like just on an accident, Caleb was like, let me see the lights, like bring the lights up, because he wanted them to turn the house lights on.
Right.
And our guy was like, I don't have the button for that, and couldn't tell him. And before that happened, the whole crowd, everyone pulled out their phones and their lights and like lit it up with their iPhones.
Oh, wow.
And we were like, I was just like, oh, that was an accident, but holy shit. And
that was a happy one.
Yeah, it looked great. And, but it was just the whole thing was just so surreal. And, you always want to do well on those shows. And, you're always a little nervous, but it happened to be a show where we just nailed it and it felt right. And I hope that, Manila will forever be like a very specific part of this band. I mean, that's the spot, man. It's great. They go crazy.
That's awesome, man. Do you think that the kid that was being driven to school by his dad listening to Beatles' greatest hits would believe you if you told him that story?
I don't know, man. I've got video of me as like a 2-year-old in diapers singing, Achy Breaky Heart on karaoke and stuff. I think my parents were kind of expecting it. I've been trying to do some version of this for a long time. It's one of those things where it's like, well, yeah, of course that worked out, because that's just what it is. My computer's about to die. I'm trying to get my wife to bring my charger.
I love it. Well, I'm going to ask you my wrap-up question that I ask everybody that does the show. And that is, given all of your experience that you've had so far and your perspectives in life, what's your advice for making the world a better place tomorrow than what it is today?
I think listening is a very important trait, an attribute. Even when you don't want to, I listen to plenty of things I don't want to listen to, including music. And I think patience and understanding. People are a little too worked up, and we're all being worked up intentionally. I think everyone needs to just be aware of that. That it's the divisiveness is a device.
Agreed.
And we have a lot more in common than we think. And everybody's got a crazy uncle, but everybody deserves to be respected and loved. And in that, you can actually get people to agree with you and bring them into your side. So kill them with kindness in a way, as tough as it may be, because we're not going to, even external of politics, just dealing with people on a day-to-day basis, until you just hear people out and let them hear you out, you're just going to keep hitting a wall. And if you want to get where you want to get, you're going to have, there's going to be a little give and take to all of it. That's the great mark of negotiation is making someone think that it's their idea, even though you've kind of talked them into it. So just, there's power in listening, and there's power in letting people think it's their idea, as long as you get it accomplished.
Love that, man. I absolutely love that. Why don't you let my audience know where they can find Culture Wars online?
Yeah, you can find us everywhere that you could possibly think of: Spotify, Apple, Amazon, YouTube. If you're in Asia, we're now on all the specific ones in Korea and Japan and China and everywhere. We are literally all over the place. So if you're on it, we're there.
Brand new single Lies out right now. Check it out wherever you can. Alex, I've really enjoyed this conversation, my friend.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.
The world is a much better place with you in it. Thanks for doing the show, my friend.
Appreciate it. Thank you.